Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Garner for this Thursday, February the 1st, 2018. Good to have you all here for our second of two shows this week. Said it'd be a late start. It's a little bit later than I would have liked, but nonetheless, you know what? We're here. We're on the air. It is what it is. It is what it is. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But as always, when I start off, I remind you all of the ways in which you can interact and contribute to our show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And of course, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our page, and then you can follow us. All right. So again, my apologies for the late start. I don't anticipate it being this late every week. As I told you all, for those that do not know, my wife is pregnant. We are in the home stretch here of having this baby, and we're going to labor and delivery classes. And we started them tonight. It's supposed to start in January. We ended up having to do later classes than we would have liked, and we started them tonight. And unfortunately, they ran a little bit later than we would have liked. I was optimistic when I got there because I was told that the class ended at 8:30, which would have been great. Good thing, but apparently I was wrong about that. So I was wrong about that, and we ended up having to be there later. We had to do a hospital tour, which is probably why it ran as late as it did. So my apologies. I did not expect it to run this late. But like I said, I anticipated we were going to be late. But ended up being a little bit later than even I would have liked. So my apologies on that. Hey, it is what it is. We do have a lot to do. But again, you all knew it was gonna be a later night tonight. So, let me really quickly bring this up because it needs to be said. I want to thank everybody that in some way, shape, or form participated in the Spotlight Film Awards this past Tuesday, the whole process, and of course the actual event on Tuesday. It was a tremendous success. We are very pleased with everything. So thank you again for that. I said that on Tuesday, but I figure it bears repeating. Thank you very much indeed for that. It was a great event, and we look forward to our next awards show, which will be in September for the TV awards. We're a long way away from that, but it'll come up on you pretty quick. Time goes by fast. You all know as you get older, time goes by fast. So it'll come up pretty quick. But thank you to all those that were involved in some way, shape, or form. All right. So again, we have a long show. Because I remember Tuesday was all about the awards. So we have our entertainment stuff, box office beat, TV highlights. We're gonna try not to go too long on entertainment stuff tonight. We just don't have the time. So we're gonna try not to go too long on that. We got some wrestling stuff, which again, when due to time, you might not do a whole lot with. But we'll do it the best we can. So we'll do that, and then we have sports, which we have quite a bit to do. We got college basketball, which this is going to be the last week that we have our kind of generic kind of college basketball segment. Next week, we'll bring back the bracket bugle, and we'll do that on Tuesday. So we'll bring that back next week. So you can look forward to that, where we'll start talking about, teams on the bubble and all that kind of fun stuff. Because we're in the thick of it now. It's February. So we're down to a month left before March. So yeah. Makes sense to bring it back now. That's what we usually do. We also have our Super Bowl preview. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all. We could have done, we talked a little about the Super Bowl last week. We talked more about the conference championship games. I could talk endlessly about the Super Bowl. You probably are talked out. This is the thing that's a dilemma for me when it comes to the 2 weeks between conference championship week and the Super Bowl. Okay? It's kind of the same thing as what happens to the national championship game in college football. It's there, and you got the couple weeks to talk about it, and especially with the playoffs, whatever in college football, it takes so long to get to it, and even with just 2 weeks, college football is different. It might take a month to get to the playoffs, but with Super Bowl, it's 2 weeks. It just feels like the first week you don't want to talk too much about it. Okay, in terms of the Super Bowl. You don't want to talk too much about it because, you still got next week. But then by the time you get the chance to talk about it the week before the Super Bowl, you feel like it's been talked about so much that you don't think you should talk about it anymore. Like you feel like, okay, let's give a preview of the game. Let's give a little bit of analysis. Let's make the prediction. Let's move on. You feel like so generally speaking, when we talk about the Super Bowl on this show, we really don't do a whole lot with it. You know, you're going to listen to a bunch of sports talk, you know, Sports Center, all these shows are going to analyze and dissect it to death. And they've been doing that for 2 weeks. And, you know, sometimes, you know, the week before the Super Bowl, you get lucky and there's all these media stories and all these things going on. You're going back and forth. And then some years you don't get anything. And this year there isn't a whole lot of that. So, you know, when the Patriots are there, let's be honest, there really isn't a whole lot. The Patriots don't give anybody bulletin board material. They talk. They're quiet. They don't do a whole lot. They don't bring attention on themselves, you know, unless there's a Deflategate thing going on, which a couple years ago. Other than that, they don't really draw attention to themselves. So there's not a whole lot to talk about with that. And then the Eagles, you know, they're not an attention-seeking team. They really haven't done anything. So this is a quiet kind of media circus that you've had going on this past week. So there isn't a lot to talk about there. So you got that, and then again, with analysis, everybody's kind of done it to death. So, you know, people always ask me, like, well, boy, you know, it seems like when you got before the Super Bowl, you guys don't really talk too much about it. Like, well, last week you talked more about the conference championship games, then you kind of did a quick Super Bowl thing and then moved on. And then, you know, I'm like, well, that's the way it goes. How much more can you talk about it? You're going to have more to talk about after the game on Sunday because you can either talk about what kind of game it was, what happened during the game. You have more to talk about then because it happened. You know, that's kind of the way it works. At least that's in my opinion. That's the way I think it works best for us, or it's the natural way it works for us. So, you know, you're going to sit here and you're going to be like, well, geez, you know, you only have like 5 minutes on the Super Bowl. Well, you know what? What else can I do? What else is there to analyze in this game by now? Not much. So we'll do a little bit of a Super Bowl thing. We'll talk more about it, obviously, on Tuesday after the fact. And then, you know, we got a couple other sports things we have to get to. Some of the baseball stuff that's going on. They're trying to figure out what they want to do with pace of play and all this other stuff. An all-star game, what they might do there. And then there's the NBA. The Cavs are a mess right now. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then there's some stuff I didn't put in the show description, but I want to touch on this too because it kind of ties into what baseball is trying to do in talking about all-star games and all this other stuff. The NBA is thinking about is going to be doing something different with their All-Star game as well. We'll talk a little bit about that. Those are kind of the things that I really want to talk about because I think they're interesting. So we got to do all that. And again, a lot of the stuff we're going to motor through. A couple of things we'll take a little bit longer with, but that's, you know, par for the course. So that's what we got on tap for the night. So sports, entertainment, wrestling, a little bit of everything. And again, some stuff we'll spend more time on than others. I welcome Mike into the spotlight. Mike, how you doing?
You know, I was here at 9 o'clock.
And I told you I wasn't going to be here at 9 o'clock. Good for you.
And you know what I did? You know what I did?
What did you do?
I listened to a solid podcast. It was very informative. And then you were like, I always wait because they were talking about zip line stuff. And I was like, Brian?
No, that's not what I said.
That's nice.
I said
I know it's not what... You know what, Brian? You know what? You had your 45 minutes to talk. It is my time. Do not infringe upon it. Do not infringe upon it.
Oh, God.
Like a monster.
Yeah, because that's
right. You know what? Shut your whore mouth. Shut your whore mouth. Shh. So, all I was trying to say was, I was waiting patiently. Mm-hmm. You actually did not interrupt anything. I was trying to give you credit for not being a dickbag. And you know what? You know what you were, Brian? You know what you were? Just then, you were a bit of a dickbag. You were a bit of a dickbag. So I only give you 25% credit for not being a dickbag.
Better than nothing.
It is better than nothing. Better than nothing.
Like I said at the beginning of the show, all right? I got my hopes up for nothing. I thought we were going to be out earlier than I thought, because originally I was told the class was like 6:30 to 9, or, you know, that's what I thought. And so I was like, all right, well, by the time I get home, by the time I eat, we're looking at like 9:30, 9:45ish. That's what I thought. Then I got my hopes up because I saw on the sheet that it said 6:30 to 8:30. I'm like, well, 8:30 is great. That means we got time eating that. I might be only like 15 minutes to a half hour late. Well, again, you don't prepare for what people are going to do and ask questions and all this other stuff. And it reminded me of that ziplining episode from South Park because, well, some questions were really, really good. and very helpful and informative and worked within the confines of the class. There were some questions that had nothing to do with it and were just kind of presented obnoxiously. And, you know, it was kind of like the whole long story short kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, God, it's like 8:45. I haven't eaten anything since like 12. Let's go. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Yes. And after you've blown out your butthole after eating Taco Bell, here you are.
I didn't eat Taco Bell. I had Burger King, but just as bad, probably.
That's even that might just be even worse.
I'm going to be honest with you. It's already made me kind of sick to my stomach, but because I ate it so late. But what are you going to do? You know, it's bad out. It's getting bad out. Choices were limited, but anyway, you know what? I'm hopeful that the next week, it won't be too bad, because this time we had to do a tour, and I think if it wasn't for the tour, we probably would have been out on time, because we were edging that way. So whatever, it is what it is. It was effective, I guess. It was helpful. So anyway, like I said, we got a lot to do. So let's start off. Let's do the Super Bowl, because again, we're not going to do a lot with it. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, you got two teams here. One team we've had in the Super Bowl a million times. We know they don't give you anything to use as bulletin board material. They do not do that. They talk respectfully about their opponent. They, you know, and they're not hot, you know, and you know they keep everything in house. Yes, there's been all this controversy with the Patriots about, will this be the end of Belichick, Kraft, and Brady? Will one of them, you know, will Belichick or Brady go? We heard all about that. But that kind of become a non-story in the last couple of weeks going into this. It's not. It's there. It's still in people's memories, but so much of it has been so played out by this point that it's not even a big focal point this week. Not as big as you would have thought. So, you know, there really isn't anything Patriot-wise to talk about. And then will Ron Gronkowski play? And I feel like we asked it every time they're in the Super Bowl now. Will Ron Gronkowski play? Let's be honest here. Whether Gronk plays or not, they're the favorite. Okay, this team, unless Tom Brady gets hurt, this team is impervious to having injuries affect them in too many ways. Okay, there's just nothing that happens with them that ever really, you know, they can just plug somebody in and, you know, they make it work. That's just the way they go. That's the way they work. So unless it's Brady's the only guy that they can't afford to lose. Brady is the only guy that they can't afford to lose. All right, and, you know, a couple weeks ago they had the hand thing, and, you know, that's still been a source of discussion. But by now, and that's the thing that kind of annoys me, though, because, you know, like I said, there isn't a whole lot you can talk about the Patriots. But what's really been bothering me is the media keeps trying to bring up the whole hand thing. The hand, how can you even bring that up? How can you even bring that up? He played 2 weeks ago with the hand thing, and he looked fine. How is this even an issue at this point? It's 2 weeks removed from it. If anything, it's not even an issue anymore, if it was ever an issue. I mean, are we serious about this now? Seriously? I mean, are we really going here again?
Brian.
What?
Brian. What else do they have to talk about?
Well, that's my point.
What other possibilities other than Rob Gronkowski? Well, let's face it. He may have a concussion. He may just be drunk. Who knows? What else are they going to talk about? Are they going to talk about whether it's okay for Tom Brady to kiss his dad on the mouth? That seemed to be the prevailing story on social media today. Not so much the hand, but whether or not it was okay for Tom Brady, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, it was okay for him and other people to kiss their dads on the mouth. I really didn't have anything else to add, so you probably should come back.
Oh, I chose to take advantage of it because the dog was starting to bark. She had to go out. So it's like, oh, he's talking real quick. Let me get her out before she starts causing a fuss. But you made my point for me. What else can you talk about? Again, this is the problem. You got two teams. I mentioned earlier, Eagles are not a team that really draws attention to themselves either. The biggest story the Eagles had all year was the whole Carson Wentz thing, tore his ACL, and then Mick Foles had to come in for him. And against all the doubters over these last couple of weeks, he's proven everybody wrong, including what he did against the Vikings, which was a clinic in how to quarterback in a big game. So there's nothing other than the quarterback situation, which, it's not like there's a quarterback situation anyway. I mean, Carson Wentz can't play. He's done for the year. Foles is the quarterback. There's nothing else to talk about. And the Eagles are this underdog story because of, Wentz going down and nobody, everybody kind of writing them off. But again, there's nothing there. Neither one of these teams has anything that you can really, there's no there's nothing there that you can really go with and talk about. You're just reaching for things. So, of course, the media is going to pull out the whole Tom Brady hand thing is still an issue. And then, they'll pull off a few controversies here and there from the past net. Well, how this, dynasty and all this. I mean, they're going to pull out things that happened before because they got nothing else to go on. I mean, it has generally been a struggle this week with the Patriots and the Eagles and the media, with them trying to figure out what they can talk about and what kind of things that they can do all week. It really has been. So, it is what it is. You got, these are the two teams you have. And, I mean, you do have a compelling storyline here. You got the Patriots continuing their dynasty. Again, you do have in the back of your mind, even though it hasn't been as much of a focal point this week as you would have thought it would have been a couple weeks ago, that could this be the last time for Brady, Belichick, and Bob Kraft? Could it be? Maybe it could. I don't know. You do have that in the back of your mind. There's a storyline on the side, but it's not that big of one because you don't think it's going to happen that way. Because I think they will. I mean, I think a lot of this has been probably handled, and especially once it got public. But then the obvious story is that adding to the legacy. Brady and Belichick and the Patriots adding to their legacy. And then on the flip side, you got the Eagles trying to get redemption for losing to the Patriots in 2004. The Eagles trying to finally get a championship, to do it against all odds when everybody wrote them off, to do it with Mick Foles, who was the ostracized quarterback. He was the quarterback a couple years ago under Chip Kelly. Got thrown out, got pushed out of the Rams. Was the starting quarterback under Chip Kelly, had a great year. Then he gets cast aside. They go with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz tears his ACL. You get Nick Foles. Everybody writes them off. And then has the game of his career against the Vikings. And here we are. So you got the underdog story, the Nick Foles story, and all that goes with it. So you have that storyline too. So there are storylines here to be had. So there are some things that going into the game that we're looking for and coming out of it, which is great. At least you have something. But there's not a whole lot. And, does that take away from the game? Maybe a little bit. But I think it's still on paper. There's enough there to make it interesting, providing it doesn't end up a Patriot blowout. Because let's be honest here, this could end up very well being a New England Patriots blowout. All right? Yes, the Eagles are very good defensively. Yes, if Foles does even half as well, actually take that back. He can't do half as well. He has to be just as good because this is the Patriots we're talking about. I don't care what kind of – look, I know the Patriot defense isn't great, okay, especially in pass defense. It's not great. We talked about that before. We talked about that in past years. They still find a way to make it work. They make adjustments. They find ways to make it work. All right? Foles is going to have to be every bit as good, maybe not even better, which is sometimes unimaginable, but he might have to be, than he was 2 weeks ago to win this game. Because you're going to need him. Because you can't get by with just running the football and then being serviceable at the quarterback position. You have to be good in all aspects to be able to beat the Patriots on this kind of stage. You really do, because they're going to be that good. Even if they come out, and this is something I always talk about with people, even if they come out in the first half and don't play that well and get themselves, look what happened last year. They were down by 25, and they still won the game. Now, that was just as much the Falcons' fault as it was to the Patriots' credit. The Falcons took their foot off the gas and stopped being aggressive, and it's that's the number one thing you can't do. If the Eagles get a big lead, you have got to approach it like you don't even have a lead. Play this game like you don't have a lead. Play this game like you're 10 points behind. Do not let your guard down. Do not stop being aggressive. Because the minute you do that, they're going to come at you and they're going to punch and punch and punch. And then all of a sudden you're going to look up at the scoreboard and you're down 3 with 2 minutes to go. And then you're going to wonder what the hell happened to you in this game. You have got to approach this game like you're always behind and keep that edge throughout the game. Foles has to play just as well, if not better, than he did 2 weeks ago. The running game has to be effective for the Eagles. They have to be good in all aspects. Their defense has to be just as good as it was against the Vikings, if not better. So they really just have to play like they did against the Vikings, just a little bit better. They do that, they'll win the game. That might seem like a tall task, and you're like, well, that's asking the impossible. No, it's not. Because this is a team that, once you got through about, I think it was like week 2, week 3, from that point all the way to Carson Wentz getting injured, was probably one of the most consistent, best teams in the NFL this year. They played at an elite level consistently for most of the season. They have it in them to play that well. They do. They found that again, even though they didn't have the same quarterback, they found that again against the Vikings. They found it, they effectively used it, and they did a good job. They have to do that again this week. They have to be the Eagles that has been an elite team all year, and they have to be what they were 2 weeks ago, if not better. And I think they have to be better than even that, because you have to play that kind of game against the Patriots. Because even if you don't play up to that level in the first half, you're going to have to in the second half when they make adjustments and figure out what you're doing to them, because they're going to make adjustments, and you're going to have to make adjustments to their adjustments in game, which is even harder to do than having those halftime adjustments. Halftime adjustments, you got a little bit of time, you can talk through it in the locker room. In-game adjustments, like in the middle of a half or in the middle of a quarter, are kind of hard to do because you went on the fly. So you have to make adjustments to those halftime adjustments, and that's a very hard thing to do. But the easiest way to look at it is you just have to keep being aggressive. That's the biggest thing. Most of the time, that's the best adjustment you can make. It's not making really an adjustment at all. It's just sticking with what worked in the first half, and just keeping in mind that you might have to change up the plays, maybe do some things differently. Take what the defense is giving you now because they made adjustments. But in your mindset, if your mindset stays the same, okay, even if your play calling has to change and, you have to do some different things on defense or whatever, if your mindset stays aggressive, you should be okay if you have a lead. If you don't have a lead, then you still have to be aggressive anyway, so what's the difference? But to me, this game is all about what Eagles team is going to be here? What Nick Foles is going to be here? If it's the Mick Foles of 2 weeks ago, or better, if it's the Eagle team of 2 weeks ago or better, this game will be competitive, and the Eagles could even win this game. If it's not, this game's over before it starts. This game ends up being a rout. That's the bottom line. Because the Patriots will shred them up. Even if they don't in the first half, even if the Eagles somehow stay in the first half, the second half, Patriots will make adjustments, and that'll be it. Patriots are just going to be the Patriots. Whatever their game plan is going in, if they have to adjust it, they'll adjust it halftime, and they'll be in the game. We know that the Patriots will be in this game no matter what. We know that. If the Eagles end up doing to the Patriots what they did to the Vikings, that would be the biggest shock in NFL history. Okay, it'd be the biggest shock in NFL history. So this is not a question of what the Patriots are going to do. You know that they're going to be on their game. Even if they don't start off that way, they'll get that way. It's a question of what the Eagles are going to do. That's this whole game in a nutshell. What will the Eagles be in this game? What will Foles be in this game? That's what this whole game rests on. I'm banking on Nick Foles having a great game. I'm banking on the Eagles having a great game. Does that mean they're going to win? No, but it means they'll be competitive, and that means this game will be in line for them if they want to take it. That's what I'm saying, and that's what I think is going to happen. So I'm expecting a close, competitive game. Unfortunately, when I'm sitting here and, because I'm an Eagles fan. I've been an Eagles fan since they drafted Donovan McNabb. It's hard for me to pick against the Patriots in this situation because even if they had Carson Wentz, Eagles, it's hard for me to see where the Eagles have such a distinct advantage over the Patriots. Yes, their defense is better as a whole than the Patriot defense is because the Patriots are not a good passing defensive team. That is true, okay? But the Patriots have shredded good defenses all year. They do it. They know how to make adjustments, and that's where they get you. Okay, on paper, you'll look at it and go, well, I have the advantage here. Well, they'll figure out a way to work around that advantage. So you can't do that against the Patriots. Maybe in the regular season you can, but not this time of year. So to me, there's nothing that the Eagles do that the Patriots can't make an adjustment and figure out a way around. And that's why I have to pick the New England Patriots to win this game. Again, I think it'll be competitive. I think it'll be a good game. We'll see what the commercials and such are like. The halftime show should be good. Justin Timberlake, all that. It's a good venue. It's a beautiful stadium, new stadium. So it should be a fun event, and you hope the game is competitive like I think it will, because you never want it. And I say this in any championship game or any series, you always want it to be competitive, because that's the most compelling storyline you can tell is having a competitive game. If you have a competitive game, then that's the best thing you can do, because you want this is the only football game, last football game of the year. It's the only football game you're going to get on Sunday. You want it to be good. You want it to be competitive. You want it to be compelling. And if it's that, then at least it puts in a good end to the season. And because this wasn't a great NFL season, we talked about it all year. It wasn't. The playoffs haven't been too bad. There's been some good moments, and I think it's helped the season. Because remember, it's so much of how you remember a season ends up subconsciously being how it ends. Maybe for you, it might be your favorite team winning, but for the general fan, it's about how good the playoffs were and how good the Super Bowl was and that last game was. If it ends up being a classic, then you end up remembering the season more fondly than you probably would have. If it doesn't, then you just think, well, this is a terrible season. Let's hope for better next year. That's kind of the way you look at it. So it is what it is. But I'm expecting a good competitive game. I think it'll end the season on a high note. I'm picking the Patriots to win. I don't see it being by more than 10, but I'm expecting the Patriots to win. So that's how I see it. Mike, do you want to make any prediction?
I predict that I will be bored out of my mind and won't give a crap.
Sounds about right.
I predicted the commercials won't be amazing. I've already heard because most of them are online now. I've already heard that most of them are not amazing. So, yeah, I don't have high hopes. So I predict that maybe I'll enjoy some pizza, and I'll probably be more on my phone and or whatever device I might carry with me that day to try to get me through this crappy Super Bowl. So
well,
otherwise Patriots by 45.5.
Oh wow. Defiant.
Honestly, I don't care. I was a fake pick. Patriots by 3. Sure, why not?
Sure.
Maybe 5. Right, maybe 7.
At least you picked one. So yeah, so Patriots, we've all picked Patriots. I think most people are picking Patriots, it seems like. So, again, we'll see. Again, hopefully it's as close and competitive a game as I think it will be. Last year it might have started out looking like it wasn't going to be a competitive game, and look what happened. It was a game for the ages. So, it's the first overtime game in Super Bowl history, which is unimaginable. So, hey, something like that even again would be nice. But, we'll see how it goes. And again, I know that we didn't do a lot of talking about this, but what can you do at this point? It's been talked about enough. It's that dilemma. It's that conundrum I talked about at the beginning of the show. It's the way it goes. But all right, so we'll put the football talk to rest, the Super Bowl talk to rest. We'll obviously talk about the Super Bowl and wrap up our discussion of the NFL season on Tuesday's show. A couple of days after the Super Bowl, we'll do all that and talk about in more detail, talk about the game and everything else. And we'll do far more with it then, because there'll be more to talk about. But again, what else can be said that hasn't been already said by a million other people? So. And it's not, again, the two teams that you don't have a lot to talk about with. It's the way it goes. All right, so end of football stuff. Now we're going to go do college basketball first, before we do some of the other stuff I want to talk about. And I never do this. I'm always the one that starts it, but I'm trying to be kind of bounce back and forth because I think it helps balance the show. So before I go on my little college basketball diatribe here, Mike, why don't you give your thoughts on what's gone on this week in college basketball? Any big headlines or anything that strikes you?
That's funny. You thought I paid attention that well. I was busy doing stuff. Come on, Brian.
You complain when I talk for like 30 minutes and I throw to you, and now you complain. I mean, what do you want from me? What do you want from me?
I mean, yeah, I want an awful lot. Thank you.
Apparently you do.
Yes, apparently I do. You know what? Maybe I want more than that. So you know what? You can eat a dick right now. You can eat a dick. Do you know who else can eat a dick? Do you know who else can eat a dick right now? Penn State. Because they got whooped by Michigan State. Yeah, last night. 76-68. So it makes you wonder, though. Makes you wonder. Well, Penn State wasn't going to be in the tournament anyway. And at this rate, neither is Syracuse. While Brian walks away, let's talk about the rumors of Clemson's demise. I guess have been greatly exaggerated for now, because they seem to have picked up a fantastic win against number 19 North Carolina. It was a close game throughout. Excuse me. Clemson almost lost the game, by the way. They almost lost the game in the second half. They were outscored pretty heavily in the second half. So you're starting to see the little chinks in Clemson's mystique, their armor. It's kind of going away for the moment, but they seem to have held it off at least long enough to beat North Carolina at home. Kentucky, who's ranked again, beat Vanderbilt at home, but they needed overtime to do it. And when you need overtime to beat Vanderbilt, so disconcerting, especially since Vanderbilt is not having a good year. They're 8-14, and they're currently 14th in the SEC. The SEC kind of sucks this year. I'm pretty sure we have made our opinion on that widely known. Auburn, who's number 11, kind of survives Ole Miss, but that's a decent road win. It's a decent road win. So, there are some amazing things going on right now. Villanova gets a solid win today. They beat Creighton. I mean, we all expected them to beat Creighton, but they beat Creighton. So, I mean, there are a lot of interesting things happening, and I'm not mentioning everything because Brian's going to talk for about a million hours.
I won't.
But, I won't. Says the man who talks for a million hours. But the fact that Clemson did beat Carolina was an interesting kind of pick. But the most interesting part of that game was the fact that Clemson was getting routed in the second half, and they only scored just enough to kind of survive. If that game had gone another 5 minutes, that would have been a win for Carolina and pretty much Clemson's season. So there's your story to watch. Oh, and by the way, did you know Kansas beat Kansas State handily at Kansas State? No,
it's a good win.
Well, it happens every year. So, it's a good win. It's a very good win. Kansas State is 16-6. They're going to be competing for a tournament spot for sure. But it's just, did you know Kansas beat Kansas State at Kansas State? Happens every year. So why are you surprised?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
But the fact that but I don't know. There were a couple interesting things. But no, Brian, you talk now.
We do have an interesting narrative being set up here because one of the things going into the season, and one of the teams we were all very high on was Wichita State, and this is their first year in the American, and we're like, oh yeah, Wichita State once they get healthy, they're an American now, so nobody can use the excuse they don't belong as number one. Well, Wichita State is struggling. And as of right now, they're the only team in the top 25 without an RPI Group 1 win. You're going to be hearing a lot about Group 1, Group 2, Group 3 wins. That's the way they're doing it now. And Wichita State's, they're going to make the tournament, obviously. We're not going to, go into that level of, worry about them, okay? But this is a concern for them because this is the kind of they're going to face some competition. They lost to Temple tonight. Now, Temple's not bad. But again, this Temple's the kind of team that you would expect Wichita State to beat. But if you look at this kind of year that we're in, we've talked about this all year. One of the things that we talked about over the last couple years, okay, and Mike knows this, is there isn't that we would always say there wasn't that many great teams in college basketball. There's a lot of good teams, but there isn't a lot of great teams, right? That's usually what we say. And there's a lot of middle-of-the-road teams, and the bubble over the years has gotten softer and softer where it's so hard to differentiate. This year, I could honestly say there's about 10 great teams. And then there's a lot of good teams. And then one of the themes this year has been teams cannot win on the road. All right? It's a rarity. Unless you have such a big advantage that, you just find a way to do it. But we've talked about this. How many of these teams have gone through ruts? Duke has gone through a little bit of a mini rut. Kansas has gone through a mini rut. Oklahoma has gone through a rut. Kentucky, North Carolina is going through one right now. We all came off of Clemson, but Clemson's starting to look like they might be coming out of something. The only two teams that haven't really, honest to God, the only two teams that haven't gone through a rut are Villanova and Virginia. And maybe Purdue. Purdue had a rough go at the beginning, but Purdue's starting to look like a team that, I mean, if they weren't in the Big Ten, we'd all be talking more about them. So it's been one of those. That doesn't mean that everybody outside of those 2 or 3 teams is bad. They're not. It's just that there's a lot. It's not parity, and it's not, oh, well, everybody else, so many of these teams are mediocre. No, it's not that. If you watch, the talent level is really good. And there's a lot more good to great teams than there was in the last 10 years. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. This week, we've seen Virginia strengthen themselves. They got to win over Clemson. They beat Duke and Cameron. And that, to me, Mike knows, I hate to give Virginia any credit. I really do. I hate to give Virginia. And over the last couple of years, when Virginia's had this ascension to being an elite level team in college basketball, I've been always reluctant to get on their bandwagon because they always lay an egg in the tournament. And they very well might. They very well might. But and I know they've beaten Duke before over the years, but to me, this was the most impressive win that this team has had in the last couple of years. Because usually, if in the last couple of years at Duke, when Duke put a run on Virginia like they did in the second half, and Mike likes to say this, and I'll agree with him here, the refs do help Duke. We know that. And they helped Duke in that second half. They really did. It was Duke and the refs versus Virginia in that game. Now, I'm a Duke fan, but I'll admit it was. And Virginia still made it happen. They did not get rattled like they've done in years past. They did not let it get to them. They figured out a way to get the job done. And that right there pretty much ended Duke's. I mean, look, Virginia's going to win the ACC. Duke's already lost 2 games in the ACC. I don't see Virginia losing 2 or more games. I really, truly don't. Not in the ACC. I really don't. They might lose 1 game. They have played a lot of top-tier competition already. North Carolina, Duke. I mean, they just beat Duke on the road. They are not going to lose more than 2. They're not going to lose more than 2 more games. They're just not. So this is over. Virginia's going to win the ACC regular season unless Louisville somehow catches them. It's just the way it is. That was a huge win for Virginia. A huge win. And again, we talk about some other teams. Game to game, it's so interesting to see what happens. Like Oklahoma beats Kansas last week, And that was one of the bigger wins of the week. Let's see what else. Cincinnati beats Temple. Now Temple's 10-10, 2-6 in the American. Temple's not a great team. They're not a bad team. They've had some tough luck. But they beat Wichita State tonight. See what I mean? Auburn's kind of quietly went about their business and has done very well, but I don't know if I buy them. You have Florida loses to South Carolina after they beat Kentucky. So, again, game to game, you don't know what you're going to get from some of these teams. That doesn't mean that they're bad teams. This means that matchups are so important. Road versus home is so important. And some of these teams, if a lot of these teams are better than playing them on the road, you're going to have trouble. Purdue beat a very good Michigan team on the road. Penn State beat Ohio State. Now, again, I wasn't one of these people that was jumping for joy in Ohio State. I really wasn't. I still don't buy into them. I don't know why they're so, people are so high on them, but whatever. Arizona State's a team that we were all so high at the beginning of the year, and then they've caught into the Pac-12. They're 3-5 in the Pac-12. They lost to Utah last week in overtime. It's so many teams have gone through these gauntlets. Look at Texas A&M, another team that we were high at the beginning of the year. They've fallen completely. They're 1-5 on the road. Okay. They lost to Kansas on Saturday. They're now 13-8. They're on the precipice of not getting to the tournament. Kentucky goes through that rut. And now they beat West Virginia in West Virginia, which is probably the most impressive road win of the year of any team, in my mind. Because Kentucky, I don't think they're not one of those teams I consider great. Okay, I don't even think I consider them good. I think they're decent. That showed you a lot, beating West Virginia on the road. Showed you a lot. So maybe you do have to put them in that good, team pile. NC State beats North Carolina in North Carolina. Now, that's a key thing because NC State's probably going to be a bubble team. That's a key thing because here's the thing. We've been talking about road wins, right? Very few teams can get them. If you're talking on a bubble and you're going to look at a team like NC State versus a team like even our Syracuse, NC State wins at North Carolina. That's better than any road win that many of these teams on the bubble are going to have. So that automatically should put them in because of that. Alabama beats Oklahoma again. That's not on the road. That's at home, but still a good win for them. Alabama's kind of a team that's been quietly going about the business. Texas Tech beats South Carolina. South Carolina gets a big win early in the week against Florida, and then drops Texas Tech. Granted, it's SEC Big 12 challenge, but still. Again, it's an up and down thing. It really is. This season is like, and that makes it fun. It's going to make for a very fun tournament. It really is. Just talent level and how good some of these teams are. It's going to make for a very good tournament. Mike mentioned Kansas being Kansas State, Duke beat Notre Dame. Trying to think of what other games were big. Of note, I don't think Baylor's going to get. Baylor's in a down year, 12-10, 2-7 in the Big 12. He mentioned Clemson being North Carolina, which again, that they needed that, and that showed you a lot. They did it at home. That shows you a lot. North Carolina's spiraling. They're 5-5 in the ACC. They're spiraling. Kentucky barely beats Vanderbilt. They needed overtime to get it done at home, which again shows you a lot about Kentucky. Then Florida loses to Georgia. Florida beat Kentucky 2 weeks ago. It's like yin. It's like a yin and yang kind of thing. Oh, and by the way, we talked earlier about how big that Virginia win was over Duke, and how big it is for the ACC. Well, they also beat Louisville this week, so Louisville drops to 6-3. Virginia is still 10-0. So again, still think they're not going to win the ACC regular season? Come on. Texas Tech beat Texas in overtime. West Virginia lost another one to Iowa State. I hate that because Iowa State, I don't want Iowa State in the bubble, but I don't think they're going to have enough. They're 12-9. So, now we'll talk more about this next week. And tonight's games, Mike mentioned Villanova or Creighton. We mentioned Temple or Wichita State. Nothing else of note. Mike mentioned the bubble, and we'll talk more about that next week. But you look at some of these teams, okay? Let's look at this here, and we'll talk a lot about this next week before we move on here. North Carolina is 5-5. They have 7 losses, and they were a top 10 team last week with 5 losses. Okay? You look at some of these teams, Arizona even, they all have like 4 or 5, 6, 7 losses outside of maybe the top 7 or so. So, there's a good chance that some of these teams that are on the top 4 seed lines are going to be above 6 or 7 losses. If that's going to be the case, and again, I talked about how good the talent level is this year, how many good teams there are, et cetera, road games, et cetera. We talked earlier about some of these teams that, maybe 9, 10 losses might not be able to stay on the bubble, like even a Baylor. But how can we disqualify them when we're talking about putting teams on the maybe the 3 or 4 line with 6 or 7 losses? Well, you're going to say, well, wait a minute, they don't have enough road wins, or they don't have enough quality wins. Well, or they have a lot of bad losses. Well, a couple of these top-tier teams have bad losses. Carolina has some bad losses. Wichita State has some bad losses. West Virginia has some not West Virginia. If Kentucky ends up on a top 4, and they're going to have bad losses. Florida has some bad losses. Oklahoma's going to have some bad losses. I can go on and on. I see some teams on, like, you go to bracketology. I see some teams on the next first 4 out, or next 4 out that don't have any more bad losses or less wins than some of these elite level teams that are considered locks. And I know it's only February 1st, and that's we'll kind of edge that out and we'll kind of work that out. But to me, it's just like I don't understand how you can disqualify a team for that. Like right now, I think I'm just going to go hometown on you all for a second. Do I think Syracuse should be in the tournament? No, I think they're awful. I do. I think they're awful. I can barely watch a game. It's embarrassing offense. No team should be that bad offensively, and that's a reflection of the coach. I like Jim Bay, but that's a reflection of the coach. When you can go into a press conference last night and say, well, we can't run offensive sets because our guys aren't capable. It's basically what he said, which I think is preposterous. Because one of the reasons why you have plays is to put guys in situations to be able to score. So consistently running isolation plays is not going to do anybody any good. You have to set plays. You have to run different kinds of offense. If you don't do that, you're not going to have guys in position to score. You have a guy in Tyus Battle that can average 20 points a game. You have a guy in O'Shea Brissett that can average anywhere from 15 to 20 a game. You have a guy in Frank Howard that can average anywhere from maybe 13, 14, 15 a game. But you say you got nobody on you have nobody there that can score? You have 3 guys that can proven they can score, and you have a couple of post guys that can chime in with 4 or 5, maybe up to 10 points every now and then. Just call some plays, run some offense, and make it work. It's February 1st. If you're still sitting here saying that your team can't find offense, and that's a bad coaching job. Because I've seen a lot of teams. You can look to the Big Ten. They're always offensively challenged, up and down that thing, but they find ways to score points when they have to. At least to solve. Most of them are good defensive teams, but they find ways to score enough points to win games. They don't sit there on their press conference and go, well, my guys just can't score. No, you figure out a way to make them score. Or you put them in a situation where they can score. You don't have 3 guys that have potential like he has and say you can't score. That's ridiculous. But anyway, that's a tirade for another day. But how, even with the loss to Georgia Tech and the loss to Wake Forest and the loss to Notre Dame, which is going to end up being a bad luck, Notre Dame's fading. How can you disqualify Syracuse with 7 losses? Can't. I don't think you even take them out of the field now. Because who else are you going to put in? So, again, there's just so many good teams and great teams and everything. I think you have to let this hash itself out. It's going to be an interesting month, that's for sure. And over the next week, you have some interesting games that I think are worth checking out. Many people probably haven't paid a lot of attention to the A-10. It's a big game in the A-10 tomorrow between number 22 Rhode Island and VCU. Rhode Island's 18-3, 10-0 in the A-10. VCU is 14-8, 6-3 in the A-10. Both these teams figured to be in the mix for Rhode Island's definitely going to make the tournament. Both these teams figured to be in the mix for tournament bids. So that's a big game. Duke plays St. John's at the Garden on Saturday. That shouldn't be pretty. Let's see. Texas Tech TCU on Saturday is a good, interesting game. Kentucky, Missouri. Missouri has any chance to be on the bubble. They have to beat Kentucky, I think. Minnesota's fallen off big time, so I'm not gonna. That missing a game doesn't matter. Syracuse has a big game on Saturday at 4:00 with Virginia at home. And the way Virginia's playing, if they were to win that game, then I think that, provided they don't colossally screw up the rest of the month, that could bode well for their chances, even though it's a home game. That's a huge game for them. Kansas State, West Virginia, Alabama, Florida, Georgetown, Xavier. Georgetown 3-7 in the Big East. That's a big game for them. Oklahoma, Texas, Pittsburgh, North Carolina gets Pittsburgh, so they should finally get a win. St. Mary's, San Diego. If you want to believe that San Diego has a chance as a bubble team. Arizona, Washington, which is an interesting game there. So some interesting Saturday games here for the first week of February. Sunday, not a whole lot. It's Super Bowl Sunday, so not much interest. Seton Hall, Villanova, probably the biggest game to watch there. So Monday, you have West Virginia, Oklahoma, Louisville, Syracuse. So those two would be interesting games to watch. Xavier, Butler on Tuesday, Tennessee, Kentucky, TCU, Kansas, and Wichita State, Memphis. Memphis trying to make a case for a potential bid. They get Wichita State, which would be a good chance for them. So that takes us up to Tuesday, which is when we'll have our next show. So some interesting games over the weekend here worth watching to see. Some teams can improve their cases as they head into February and more solidify their seeding as you head into February. So This is the last time we're going to do this kind of the way we've been doing it. Next Tuesday, we'll obviously talk about the games since we, last talked, college basketball and that, but we'll also focus more on the bubble teams and what teams have to do to get in, where they're at, that kind of thing. As we did return our bracket bugle segment on Tuesday here as we enter the final month of the college basketball regular season. That's the way it goes. You talk a little bit about it, but then once the Super Bowl is over, you really start to talk about it because you only got a month before conference tournaments and Selection Sunday. And keep in mind, too, the Big Ten's conference tournament will be, like a week early or 2 weeks early. So we'll be dealing with that, too, as some other conferences are finishing up their seasons. So that makes it interesting and a little bit dicey, too. But, we'll talk about it along the way. So the Bracket Bureau returns Tuesday. We'll talk about bubble teams and all that kind of stuff. Look back at the week in college basketball, all that here starting on Tuesday. Which makes it fun. It means that we're heading towards the end the stretch run here. So it makes it fun. It makes it dramatic. Every game matters, as if it didn't already, but it matters even more here with a month to go before March Madness. So that's it. So that's all the big college basketball stuff. I think that was worth talking about. Highlights wise, big wins, big losses, that kind of thing. All right, so let's get from college basketball. Let's do a little bit NBA here quick. Couple things. First of all, let's talk about the All-Star game thing first. So this week it was reported that one of the things they're going to try to do for the NBA All-Star game to try to make it more competitive and get the guys to play defense, okay, is to allow them to essentially pay them to play. Pay them to play. I guess the whole idea was, hang on, I'm trying to find the article on it because I think, okay, it was announced a day ago. The NBA announced that the winning team of the 2018 NBA All-Star Game was select a community-based organization to receive a $350,000 donation from the league, while the losing team will select a similar charity to receive $150,000. So it's a little bit different than what I had heard, which it sounds better this way, to be honest. It does. Sounds a lot better. Let's see. Yeah, so that's the way they're going to do it. So the winning team will get $350,000 donation from the league, while the losing team will select a similar charity to receive $150,000. So originally I heard they're going to pay the players. Now I heard that the winning team, they're just going to donate money. So the winning team will get more money to donate, and the losing team will get a little less money. So that actually sounds better than what I had heard, which was basically we're going to pay the players to be there. Which kind of sounds a little, like they get paid enough. It kind of sounds a little selfish, and I don't know. It's not good PR. I should have known Adam Silver. It's going to be better than that. And honestly, I think that's a good idea. First of all, you're benefiting charities. And these guys it is gonna be a motivating factor because you know what, a lot of these guys do have community outreach charities that they support, and they're not gonna want to come out with egg on their faces for not performing well to try to win for their charity. So that to me is a really, really good idea, and I think it's gonna help. So I had this whole big argument because I didn't like the fact that it just sounded like initially when I heard it that they're just gonna pay the players to play. You know what I mean? I didn't like that. Now that it's for charities, I really can't find anything worth arguing about. Mike, do you like the idea?
You know what? I heard that story, I want to say yesterday or a day ago.
Mm-hmm.
That, I think it was a day ago. No, 2 days ago. It was yesterday. I was listening on the way home to sports radio, which is something I rarely do. But yeah, the local DJs were saying they were upset and they were all in arms because, they were it was totally they were going to pay the players to do it. I mean, they thought that maybe some of them were going to donate their money to a charity, but they thought that was mostly going to be they were going to pay these players to actually play and try and play defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very confused about that, but the way if this story is true, that who are we to doubt Adam Silver? Dude knows what he's talking about.
It's actually a press release from NBA.com, so this looks like it's the truth. So
All right. Well, then I'll take that. Then who am I to doubt Adam Silver?
Yeah.
This was a smart move. It's a smart choice. Excuse me. Making it all about community outreach. It does a lot of good for the NBA's image. A lot of good for the NBA's image. So, yeah. And it's like you're not paying the players to be there. You're encouraging the players platforms of social justice and with their community outreach and everything to kind of be there and play. And the winner gets more money to donate to the charity of their choice, which is an excellent choice, by the way. So it's a very good look for the NBA. And there are some very good charities that are going to benefit from this. So, no complaints here, man.
I should have known when I heard that in the initial, like I said, I heard the initial story. I was like, oh my God, this sounds like the first misstep that the NBA has really had under Adam Silver. I should have known better because he has his hand on the post a little bit. He knows what he's doing. And he got out in front of it, and he made sure. I think it's a good idea. And there's a lot. And I'm not going to talk about this today, but there's a lot of talk about them. The gambling thing with NBA and everything, legalizing it, and then making sure, that way that the NBA makes a profit off it and everything. There's a lot of different things that he wants to do. He has a keen understanding of what works and what doesn't. And you really wish he could be commissioner of every sport because he really is better than anybody else. He really understands things and kind of really just, he's very in touch with what the fans want and what they want to see out of the games. And good for him. I think this is a great idea. We'll see how it works. We'll see if it makes a difference. I'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about what baseball is going to try to do. There's talk about them doing something similar, which I don't think would be the worst idea in the world. I think it'd be great. We'll see. The other NBA story, and this is more about on the court stuff, and we'll no doubt be talking about this a ton over these next few weeks here and months because it's going to be a lingering story. What's going on with the Cavs? Now, since most of this got, I guess, to the current lowest point, they beat Miami yesterday, so they had to do to stay in the 3 spot in the East. And I know we got 2 months to go, but heading into the All-Star game and trade deadline and what are they going to do? And a couple days ago there was a lot of talk. Should they move Kevin Love? Should they move Isaiah Thomas? Isaiah Thomas is being blamed. He doesn't like that he's being blamed. Kevin Love doesn't feel like a fit anymore. Not that he's ever really been a fit for them. You've been hearing that forever. He just found a way to coexist. Who are they going to trade? If they are going to trade, this is and then of course we talked last offseason about how this might be LeBron's last year in Cleveland. And, how does all this drama play into that? And there's a lot of layers to this. I'm not going to talk about them all tonight. Kevin Love broke his hand. He's out, I think, 2 months, 6 to 8 weeks, 2 months, whatever it is. When he comes back, it'll probably be right around playoff time. So you obviously can't trade him unless somebody looks at it from a standpoint of next year. And if you're Cleveland, if you want to stay in this playoff race and have a chance, you can't trade Isaiah Thomas now when Kevin Love's out. So, you kind of really can't do much of anything with the top players. You can make a couple moves and try to make the team better, but you can't really do anything else. So, obviously there's been a lot of talk about what, Isaiah Thomas playing. The team doesn't seem to do as well. The rotation, they haven't had a steady rotation all year. They've had a lot of injuries. They've had a lot of issues. Obviously the Kyrie Irving stuff in the offseason. There's been a lot of things. And Cleveland's had a lot of people don't think they're on the same page. There's problems with LeBron James and the ownership. And here's the bottom line, okay? With Kevin Love being hurt, they really can't do anything right now. They can make a couple moves, try to get better. If Kevin Love doesn't come, Kevin Love's going to come back during the playoffs. Obviously, the first couple rounds of the playoffs, they'll probably be fine. They really would just need him more or less for the Eastern Conference Finals, I would imagine. At least the semifinals, I'd imagine. If he's not back and he's not healthy by then, or if he's still not right, then I don't think Cleveland's going to make the finals this year. LeBron James can only do so much. Isaiah Thomas can only do so much. And he still doesn't look like he's completely right. So I think if you're Cleveland, and this is an interesting thing, because you really have to make this decision in the next 2 weeks because of the trade deadline. You obviously know you can't move Love, okay? Now, I said they probably can't move Thomas if they want to still be in the playoff mix and they want to try to go for the finals again. And I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to try to, mix and match and try to make it work and count on Kevin Love getting back. But if I'm Cleveland, I look at it from this standpoint. Okay, obviously Isaiah Thomas is not clicking. And if you have to really evaluate this and think, is this going to work out? Sometimes it doesn't. You thought it would, maybe it doesn't. And you're looking at LeBron, you're like, well, we want to try to keep LeBron here and build around him for a couple more years, try to make one more go at least get one more championship. I would seriously consider sitting down with LeBron James and being like, what do you think? Just get his perspective. Given where we're at, what's going on, what do you think? Should we make a move here and just go, you know what? It's not working for this year. Let's let this year go and let's build for next year. See if LeBron will give you one more year, opt in, stay one more year. And say, you know what, let's move Isaiah Thomas, let's trade him, let's see what we can get back. Get a couple of core players to build around LeBron James, and then see if there's anybody else we can move to get a couple more players, draft picks, reload, and then see if we save some cash in the offseason, see if we can go get somebody else to add to this and reload this thing for next year. Because the thing about Cleveland is that over the last, not just this year, but last year too, they've had a lot of problems. The reason why they lost to Golden State is they don't have any wing defenders. A lot of the guys that are supposed shot makers outside of LeBron, now, and of course Irving's gone now, and are just not making shots anymore. You can't count on J.R. Smith anymore. They don't have enough shot makers outside of their big elite players. They don't have enough post presence. They're getting beat inside like crazy. They don't have any wing defense. They have too many holes now. And you're relying too much on LeBron James as he gets older. It's starting to get to where Kobe was at the end of his Laker run, where he just doesn't have enough. I think you're deluding yourself if you don't evaluate this and sit down with LeBron James and say, you know what, I know you're going to hate this, and I know you don't want to play out the rest of the season knowing full well that you don't have a chance to get a championship, but we might have to if we want to try to go for one next year. Because let's be honest, in this current state, the way they are, whether Kevin Love comes back or not, they're not beating Golden State. They might not even get to the finals. So why delude yourself and waste time and not make some moves that could benefit you and get you into a championship next year? I don't think they're going to look at it this way, but that's the way I would look at it. I would bring LeBron in, sit him down, say, what do you think about where we're at? What do you think about this plan? And go for it. Because I don't think it's working. I really don't. I know people are going to say, well, they haven't had a chance. They haven't had a chance to get all the rotations together. Isaiah Thomas hasn't been back down. I just don't see it. The chemistry's off. They're all playing the blame game. There's rumors Tyronn Lue's going to be out. There's just too much drama. You have to nip that in the bud. It's become a toxic environment. It ain't going to get better. It is not going to get better unless you do something significant. Because here's the thing what you can do. Again, you can trade Isaiah now. Somebody's going to want Isaiah Thomas. Get a big package for him. Maybe there's another player you can even move, like a Thompson or somebody. Get a lot of players back for him. See what you can get. See what the player package you can get. Get them into some rotations this year. See how they all click. What works and what doesn't. Off season, you can trade Kevin Love. And then all of a sudden, you got all these maybe some draft picks too, and get some good draft picks. Get some free agents, see what you got in trade, and all of a sudden you got a team around LeBron James that addresses all its issues. Maybe younger, so that if LeBron does leave after next year, if you're assuming you get him into opt-in for next year, then you have a young nucleus to build around. That's what I would do. They ain't going to do it. That's what I would do. So it's just a lot of drama. It's just a toxic environment. Mike, what's your thoughts on this Cavalier mess here?
Oh, I do believe it is quite the mess.
Mm-hmm.
However, I will say this. I disagree with you in thinking that trading Isaiah Thomas will solve the problem, because it won't. Especially since you lost Kyrie Irving. You need a dynamic point guard to kind of be the guy that if LeBron James leaves after this year and you decide to trade Isaiah Thomas, well, now you're shit up the creek without a paddle. Who's your point guard of the future? Derek No Means No Rose? Is it Dwayne Wade? You're up shit's creek without a paddle. So I think Isaiah Thomas is seen as a long-term move. That it's our insurance policy that if LeBron leaves, well, we got Isaiah Thomas, and this kid's ready to bust out and be a star. So I would not even think about trading that guy away. Wouldn't think about it. Wouldn't dream of it. However, there are guys I would try to package together and just try to get rid of. And I'm going to say it right now. Tristan Thompson should be gone. J.R. Smith needs to go. However, if this ever gets back to J.R. Smith that we said that, well, let's be honest here, J.R. Smith would have a conundrum, because what do we know? J.R. Smith, his strengths are in the postseason, more or less. He is exclusively there to make big shots and from deep. And if he's not doing that, because Lord knows that guy hasn't played defense in forever in the NBA. If he can't do that, then why is J.R. Smith taking up an important roster spot? Because I'm looking at this. Derrick Rose isn't going to do anything for you. Dwayne Wade is good, but I don't know.
You're gonna get nothing for him.
Not really. Not at this point in his career. Tristan Thompson, he needs to go.
You can get something, but it won't be as good as you would like it to be.
As for Kevin Love, at this point, you might have to trade him, and you might have to put a package together with him and Tristan Thompson and, I don't know, a couple other guys to kind of put together and see if you can get something big, and maybe a couple picks and some money, see if we can get something big. Maybe like Anthony Davis or something, because let's face it, you're going to need something to fill the holes. Anthony Davis is an elite defender who can score. And he solves a lot of Cleveland's problems now. And he'll solve a lot of Cleveland's problems going forward. And he's the guy you need to look at and like, all right, we need him. He's going to help us win this year. Because Anthony Davis creates a lot of problems for Golden State. He creates a lot of problems for Boston. He creates a lot of problems for most teams. It's just the Pelicans aren't going to do very much, and they will not do very much going forward. At least until, all their guys get healthy. And you know what? You take the gamble. Anthony Davis might be a better fit culturally for this team. Kevin Love, God bless him. Kevin Love has been a producer. He hasn't been an elite producer, but he has been an essential guy for this team.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't win without his 17-10, and he'll get his 3 or 4 blocks a game. Sometimes he'll go more than that. Kevin Love he has been a key part of this Cavs team going forward,
Mm-hmm.
He does average almost a double-double a game. And that's more than you could say for a lot of the other guys on this team. Like, what the fuck is Tristan Thompson doing? What the fuck is Tristan Thompson doing? This year, where they might actually need Tristan Thompson to be good, he's doing nothing. At least Jake Crowder's kind of beginning to stir a little bit. And by the way, him beginning to stir is literally 30 games too late. He did 11-7 last night against Miami. 11-7 in 27 minutes. It's great. and he's now going to be getting some starter minutes, and that's great. But Jake Crowder needs to do more than 11-7, and he is very much capable of that. Dude is an excellent player. He's an excellent NBA player, and the fact that he's just starting to show it for Cleveland is a little concerning.
Yeah.
So I would need, if I'm Cleveland, I would look to put together a package of draft picks, of current players, and of cash, and shop that around. See if you can get, somebody like Anthony Davis or a major center or something.
Right. Yeah.
To kind of really help you going forward, because let's be honest here. And I think that package might have to include Kevin Love. And it should definitely include Tristan Thompson.
Yeah, there's no way around it.
So if I'm but I don't think you can trade Isaiah Thomas, because if LeBron James decides to take his talents elsewhere, you're going to need a guy like Isaiah Thomas to build around.
Well,
so
my only caveat would be this, and like I said, I would not. The only way you trade Isaiah Thomas is after you've had a conversation with LeBron James, because this plan, that whole idea that I had, doesn't work unless LeBron opts in for next year. If he opts in for next year, then you're like, you know what? What do you think we should do? Because the only problem I have with the Isaiah thing, and I love Isaiah Thomas, he's a great player. You hope we shouldn't have to move him. But here's the problem. If it's already a toxic, and he's already kind of like, well, geez, I'm taking the blame for this. I'm the new guy, and everybody's kind of shunning me, whatever. If it's already not working, it ain't going to change. It's kind of like, so again, this whole idea of what I talked about with trading and everything for packages, the first thing you're going to do is you got to sit down with LeBron and be like, you know what? This is what we're thinking, but in order to do this, you need to be here next year, because we can't do this, and it's in the best interest of their future. They can't do that unless he's opting in for next year. So at least they have him for next year, because the whole idea is we're going to try to reload and get this thing fixed over the course of the last half of this year and in the off season. That's the way you're going to try to do it. You're going to try to get as many talented players, picks as possible, and try to, it's kind of like the equivalent of what Brian Cashman did with the Yankees, where he just reloaded quickly and got the ship righted quickly. That's what you're going to try to do. And you can do that. They have Kevin Love, and if they do decide to move Isaiah Thomas, they have him. Again, you can't move Love to the offseason, because he has to play some games and prove he's healthy first, because nobody's going to do that right now. But you can move Thomas is the big one that's going to get you some pieces. Just the way you got to try to do it. But the first step in that plan would be sitting down with LeBron and saying, all right, we need you to opt in for next year. Be here next year. Give us a year, and we'll make it worth your while. That's what you got to try to do. That's the only way you can make this work. Otherwise, they're just going to keep doing what they've been doing, is putting a couple Band-Aids on the problem and hoping they work. Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade, these little J.R. Smith, they've been doing this, and they've gotten lucky a few times, but it's not working anymore. They've got to get younger. They've got to have more athleticism on the wings. They have to have better defense on the wings. They have one plus defender on that team, and it's LeBron James. That's all they got. So they have to fix it. And they need more shot makers. They don't have nearly enough shot makers outside of LeBron James and Isaiah Thomas. That's a problem. So it's a lot of work to be done there. We'll see how it goes over these next few weeks and months. It's going to be a storyline that's going to go right into the offseason and beyond. Should be interesting to see how it all ends up, because it's major drama right now. Obviously, there was a big trade with Blake Griffin. I don't have much to say about it. That's why I didn't put in the show description. I imagine it's not the first trade the Clippers are going to make. They could probably move DeAndre Jordan and move Williams. And look, if I'm Cleveland right now, if they have the money, I'm on the phone trying to get DeAndre Jordan. That's what I would be trying to do, because he would help them. But
100% would. He would help them. 100%.
Yeah, that would be optimum to get him. I would have been on the phone trying to get Blake, but the problem with Blake is he can't stay on the court. I don't know if Cleveland wants that right now. But Blake goes to Detroit. Detroit's trying to win now. I don't think he's that much of a difference maker for them. They're not close enough to be that, And I told you this off the air. I'm like, I firmly do not expect Blake Griffin to be there for maybe more than a year or two. I really don't
Nope.
see it. I don't see it. I think he's.
This move is to exclusively try to increase his value. That's all this move is.
Well,
I'm increasing my value for later on.
I'm anticipating Detroit thinking that they're, because remember he signed that contract with the Clippers. I'm anticipating Detroit thinking, oh, he'll like it here and stay. I don't see that. The guy spent most of his career in sunny LA. He ain't gonna want to stay in Detroit. No disrespect, man.
Nope.
And that team is not. They might make the playoffs this year, but that team's nowhere close. They're not going to be close to a championship over the next 2 or 3 years. They can't get free agents to go there. So you really think he's going to stay there? No, he's going to be grumbling by the time we get to training camp next season. He's already probably grumbling. So yeah, I don't see it. I really don't. I think you'll get him into next season. Maybe at the trade deadline next year, he's moved again. That's all I can think of, because I just don't see it sticking. Good for Detroit landing this deal, but I don't see it working out. I really don't. And the Clippers is going to unload, and they're going to try to piece this thing together and and reboot, because they don't want to be in mediocrity for too long. And look, I think they're doing the right thing because it isn't working anymore. But it sucks that it had to end like this. And look, they probably should have done it before they gave Blake Griffin the extension, but it is what it is.
The contract Blake Griffin got meant that he would be a Clipper for life. That's what it is.
It was a rotten thing to do.
It was awful because this dude was a lifer.
He really didn't want to play anywhere else. I mean, he could have went anywhere. He could have, but he wanted to be there, and that is an awful thing to do. So I get why they did it from a business standpoint. I get it. I think from that standpoint, it's the right move. Well, from the standpoint of rebooting, it's a nice move. Business wise, it's gonna hurt because he entertained people. But but again, I just don't. I mean, they should have decided that before they extended them. To me, it's in bad form. But yes, but I know that, there's been some trying times and stuff, but still, it's not the right way to go about it. So again, there's not much I can say about that, and the fact I don't think he'll be there very long. All right, so let's just get the baseball stuff quick. Let's see, what was the thing? Oh, I mentioned the All-Star game. I mentioned they might consider doing similar to what the NBA is doing with the whole charity donation thing, which would be good if they can do it. It might help. It's better than the whole All-Star game, but preventing a tie and all that crap. It's better than that, so I'll give them that. The biggest thing that's going on in baseball, it's been a big focal point for the last couple of years, is pace of play. And a lot of ideas are coming out there. You probably heard in minor leagues they're using a pitch clock. There's been some talk they might use a pitch clock in 2018. There's even they might try it out in the All-Star game or during the spring training or whatever, see how guys adapt to it. And then there's been some talk of only doing it for certain situations, if it gets into the 10th inning or something like that, or there's a lot of different things going on, a lot of ideas. But here's the idea, okay, that to me is one of the stupidest ideas. If they do this, they're going to lose a lot of fans, okay? Now, I understand. Let me preface this by saying I understand that, if you don't like baseball, you hate when it goes into extra innings and it goes past the 12th or 13th inning, because it becomes more of a war of attrition. All right, you're running out of pitchers. The game's going, especially if it's a 1-1 game. There's not a lot of offense. You're probably getting bored out of your mind. You're you're looking at the clock. It's 12:30, 1 o'clock at night. You're like, well, geez, I have to go to work the next day. Or if you're at the game, physically at the game, you hate. You might have to take off early. You might not be able to watch the rest of the game because some transit, whatever, closes at a certain time, or you don't want to beat the traffic, or again, you have to work the next day, or your kids have to go to school the next day, or what have you. And there's a lot of particulars here. So there are a lot of people that hate it when it goes that long. Even people that are watching it from the comfort of their own home, they hate it. And there's some people that are diehard baseball fans that love it and love, all the things that go with it, like trying to figure out, I run out of pitchers. Well, I have to have a position player pitch. This could be fun and also horrifying. A lot that like some of the things that go along with it. Now, I'm not going to take it from that perspective because even though I do like a lot of that stuff, I also understand too, it can get tedious and it can be a little rough to watch. And again, I understand all the reasons why somebody might not want to watch it, Again, I remember I take all this in and I understand it all. One of the ideas that they're thinking about, okay, is kind of similar to what you see in football, where you know how you can put the ball at like what the 30-yard line, and you give them a couple plays, and if they don't make don't make the plays, they can kick a field goal, and then you give the other team a chance to kick a field goal or win it with a touchdown. You know what happens in the NFL or the pros or whatever. You know what happens in football. They're talking about doing something similar in baseball, where after a certain point, maybe after the 12th inning or something like that, they would put a man on second base or a man on first or one of the bases. And essentially, the team would come up to the plate and they'd have 3 outs to get them in. And if they didn't get them in, then the next team steps up to the plate and the same situation applies. And you keep doing that until the game ends. Because eventually, law of averages says you put somebody on base, eventually you're going to get that guy in. Okay, so that's kind of the idea of what they're thinking about. Here's why I don't like that. Okay, I don't even like it in football when they do that. I think they should have to earn it. Okay, maybe I've heard some people say, "Oh, maybe it might work in the regular season." I mean, spring training it will work fine if you do it that because nobody cares. But maybe in the regular season, people would hate it, but they wouldn't hate it so much. You can never do that in a playoff situation. You can never do that in a playoff situation. Teams play all year, 162 games. You're gonna have it end like that. But here's why I don't like it even in regular season. Baseball is so much different than football. Because here's the thing. Let's say you decide to put a guy on first base. Okay? What can they do? They can bunt the guy over to second base. Okay? And maybe even have him steal a bag and then give him to third base. You're making it too easy for a team to win a game. It's not like football where you have to make a catch, you have to run for 10. It's not the same thing. You're making it too easy. Well, imagine the runner, if you put the runner on second base, they can just bunt the guy over and you can win this game out of sac fly. To me, that's dumb. It's dumb. And here's the thing. What's the big issue here? Pace of play. It's not how long the game goes. It's the way that the game is played. It's the pitchers that take 20 minutes to deliver their pitch, or the batter that keeps stepping out of the batter's box for every little thing that goes wrong, or the constant stoppages of play for pitching coaches going to the mound or catchers going to the mound because their pitcher has a problem every 10 seconds. That's the kind of stuff that people don't like. Reduce the mound visits. Reduce the amount of times the batter can step out of the box or the amount of times the pitcher can step off the mound. That kind of stuff alone will improve the game. That's all you need to do. Pace of play is the problem. The stuff that you're talking about, putting a guy on second base, that's not pace of play. That's not the same thing. That's talking about length of games. And if you look at most people's complaints, they're not talking necessarily. Yeah, some people hate that games go that long. But if they're interesting, they don't. But I'll tell you one thing. Nobody wants to see a team get away with a cheap win. And that's a cheap win if you do that. If a team loses on that kind of rule. That's a cheap win. And if they do that, they're going to alienate a lot of people. And not just diehard baseball fans. Just people that like sports in general. That's a cheap thing to do. It has nothing to do with the problem either. So hopefully that's something they don't even consider doing. I mean, spring training is something you can get away with that kind of junk. But even in regular season, I would never do that. It's more about the conferences on the mound with the catcher and the pitching coach and pitchers stepping off the mound, batters stepping out of the box, that kind of thing. It's more about that than it is anything else. Nobody ever complained about a 5-hour Yankee Red Sox game when they're at their height. Nobody does because they're interesting. Or a Dodger Giant game because they're interesting. Don't take that away because it has nothing to do with the problem. This is a dumb thing. I just had to rant about that because I know people have been talking about it. It's stupid. Dumb. Mike, before I move on, you have any thoughts?
Nope.
Figured you didn't. All right. So that's I said we had a lot of sports. We got through it. It's all the sports stuff we have. I'm going to quickly do entertainment really, really quick, and we'll end on wrestling. So we're heading into that time now at the box office as we start the box office beat, where, we're starting to burn off some of the holiday movies, assuming any of them are still doing well enough. And you're kind of at that point now where some of these movies that are getting awards recognition start to move up. They start to expand if they haven't already, expand their theater counts and whatnot. So that's kind of where you're at right now. And also you're about to head into February, where you might start to see some big blockbusters turn up, but winter break and spring break coming and so on. This week you got a little bit of a blockbuster this past weekend with Maze Runner 3, the final film in the Maze Runner franchise, which had been delayed due to Dylan O'Brien's injury. You have that, and it didn't do badly. It did 24.1. You probably would have liked it to at least get to 30, but it's not bad. Budget's only 62 million, and it's already up to 125.8, 97 million overseas. So not bad. It's okay. In line with, I guess, enough. And plus, it's the last film. So what are you going to do? So, all right. So for the end of January, you'll take that if you're the box office. Especially when you look at what happened below that film. Jumanji, which was dominating over the last few weeks, dropped from first to second, but still pulled in 16.1 million, which in the 6th week is very, very good. It's only a 17% drop off. So once again, Jumanji kind of holds the entire box office up. Another shocking thing, in addition to Jumanji's hold, which shouldn't shock us given how it's been doing, was how well an expanded release did. I don't even think I talked about this last week. Hostos, which jumped from 23rd place to 3rd with 10.1 million. It's expanded by 2,697 theaters. Hostos stars Christian Bale, Rosamund Pike, and Ben Foster. Came in at 10.1. I didn't even think it'd make about 5 or 6. So an unexpected kind of expansion here. And this does better than you would have thought. So that's a good thing, good plus, because it got very little attention and hasn't gotten a lot of award stuff. It'd probably get it next year more than this year anyway, but still, actually, it would have counted for last year. So yeah, it hasn't gotten a lot of awards buzz, but still did well enough. So that's a good thing, a plus. Outside of that, you had a couple of holdovers. The Greatest Showman dropped from moved up from 5th to 4th, 9.5 million, a 10% drop off as it continues to just do good business despite the low opening. It's already up to 263.4 million on $84 million budget. So the movie that everybody thought was going to be a flop, it's really word of mouth carried itself. Much like Jumanji, which didn't have the highest openings that you would have liked, but they've carried themselves well over these last few weeks as some of the other movies have burned themselves off, including Star Wars. The Post dropped from 4th to 5th, 9.1 million, 22% drop off. Not too bad for that movie. 12 Strong dropped from 2nd to 6th, 8.6 million, which isn't too bad. It's about what I would think, 45% drop off. Then The Thieves also in its 2nd week dropped from 3rd to 7th, 8.6%, $8.6 million. Shape of Water jumped from 16th to 8th as it expanded by 1,000 theaters with 5.9 million, which is, I thought it might do a little better than that, but it's not too bad. And then Paddington 2 only dropped 29% and dropped from 6th to 9th with 5.6 million, which isn't too bad in its 3rd week. Star Wars dropped below 5 million, which I didn't think would happen, but it did. Then there's a movie called Padmet, which is a foreign film that came in right under 5 million. So that's not too bad either. So you end up with 6 movies. Probably 9 movies over 5 million, which is not bad for the last week of January, which usually is kind of a lull month. So some of these movies did exceptionally well as they expanded, and some of these movies held up very well, like Jumanji and Greatest Showman. And Maze Runner could have done better, but it didn't do poorly enough to really worry you. So all in all, it ends up being, I thought it might be a kind of a down week. It wasn't. It was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. It was a little less than last week, but held up pretty well. There's a real true negative is that Star Wars has kind of fallen really hard over these last 3 weeks with Jumanji's ascent and Greatest Showman's ascent. It's at 1.3 billion. I'm sorry. I thought it would definitely get to 1.5. I don't know if it's going to do that anymore. It's fading fast. Now, again, how much of that is, so many, not like how much of that is that people aren't going for as many repeated viewings? How much of that is competition? We don't know. But, you know, it has dropped considerably ever since its third week, which is something that nobody would have expected. So, but oh no, not a bad weekend at the box office. Much better than I mean, as a whole, than I would have thought. So not bad. Now this weekend, you only have one new release, nothing else in terms of like expansion or anything like that. One new release, and it's a horror film called Winchester from Lionsgate, opening in 2,480 theaters. Starring Helen Mirren and Jason Clarke. With the theater count, with the lack of promotion, plus all the other movies that are out, I'd be shocked if it makes above 5 million. I really would. I'll put it right at 5 million just to be nice. I don't see it. In fact, I think the most interesting thing about this weekend is going to be whether Maze Runner or Jumanji is number one. Because the way Jumanji's been holding up, you could see Jumanji around 13, 14 million. And I think Maze Runner, which most expect to be front loaded, will probably be right around 15, 16 million. It could be close between those two. I'll say Maze Runner ekes it out by maybe like I'll say Maze Runner 15 million, Jumanji around 13, but it could be pretty close there. Outside of that, I think you'll see The Greatest Showman around 8 million or so. The Post around 7 million. I'll say Hostos, 12 Strong, and Den of Thieves will all be around 6.5, 5.5 million. Those movies could be in different order because those three are going to be very close. So, you know, those placements could be different than what I just said. Shape of Water, keep an eye on that movie. It could be, I'm saying it'll be around 5.5, 6 minutes. So probably close with The Post and 12 Strong and Den of Thieves. But I don't know. I don't see it anywhere saying it's going to expand more. But if it expands more, then that movie could jump above 10 million because it's got a lot of buzz, got a lot of awards recognition. You could see that movie around 10, 11, 12 million, which would put it right under Jumanji, which would put it in third place if that's where it goes. If it expands further this week, you could see it doing that. I don't think it has enough juice to get to 20 million, even if it expands, but you never know. That possibility exists because it's got a lot of buzz and a lot of people have been interested in it. So, so the way I see it right now, again, I think Maze Runner will eke out number one with around 15 million. Jumanji 2 around 13 million, could be very close there. Again, if Shape of Water expands further, you could see it go as high as 10, 11, 12, which would put it in third place. I don't see no proof that's going to happen. So I'm not going to say that, but if it does, you could see it right there. Otherwise, I think you'll see The Greatest Showman around 8 million. Hostos, The Post, 12 Strong, Den of Thieves, and probably Shape of Water all within like 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7 million. And again, their placement could be, again, it could be anything because they're all going to be so close together. So that's how I see this weekend going. So, oh no, I don't think it'll be a, and again, Winchester, I think will be around 5 million or lower. So, oh no, I don't think it'll be a bad box office weekend. We've definitely seen worse, but it's going to be kind of like a lull weekend. Transitional weekend here after a few decent weeks, not great weeks, but decent weeks to start the year. This weekend will be kind of like, oh, there's nothing big coming out, be about the holdovers and what they do. And then next week we get into some things will start to build finally with the 1517 to Paris, 50 Shades Free, which will do very well, and Peter Rabbit. You'll definitely see some better results next week. And then Black Panther will be out, and that will give you some huge results. That movie's expected to break records. Its advanced ticket sales are incredible. So things will definitely get better after this week, and things will start to build again as you head to March and whatnot. So, oh no, it shouldn't be a great week. It'll probably be mediocre, but you know, again, it's the first week of February, and it's been a good start to the year, so they can't complain. But it'll be more about the holdovers this week, definitely. So, Mike, any box office thoughts before we move on?
No.
Okay. So TV highlights, I'm going to be very quick because I know Mike will probably have more than I do, and that's not an assumption. That's usually a fact. Let's see what else. What I have on TV stuff. I think I already talked about The Gifted. I think I mentioned I watched The Gifted finale. I thought it was fine. I don't think I probably already mentioned it, but I did like it. If you haven't seen The Gifted, catch up on it. It's a good show. It's one of the better comic book shows on TV. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought was great last week. Great special effects. Great build up to this week. Some very good sequences in that episode. So a big surprise too there with a character coming back. So It looks like the arc's going to at least come to somewhat of a climax this week, so that should be interesting. I checked out the DC shows this week, The Flash, Arrow. Honestly, I thought they were all bad. So I'm not gonna recommend them. I'm just bringing it up because I watched them. So I didn't really enjoy any of those. What else? I'm trying to be quick. Oh, what else did I watch this week? My wife has been watching. She wanted to watch it, and I gave it a chance because I like Andra Bassett, I like Peter Krause, and I like Connie Britton. 911, Ryan Murphy's new show on Fox, and I've watched the first 4 episodes because she had him on. It's all right. I mean, it's pretty, you know, I don't know. It reminds me of when, you know, it's the same thing that used to bug me about Grey's Anatomy when it was in its first few seasons, where it's like they rely too much on over the top theatrics sometimes instead of just focusing on real issues and, like, you know, trying to be really serious and, you know, letting things play out at a natural pace. You know, I don't know. It just seems a little bit too campy at times, but I mean, you know, I've watched it. It's not bad. It's not something I would watch. I'm probably not going to watch it for anymore, but what else did I watch? I watched more TV this week than I have in a while. I'm just trying to be I haven't caught up on the Blacklist. I haven't. Actually, no. I think that's it. I think that's all I've gotten. So, you know, the only thing I mean, and again, you might call me a fanboy. The only thing I'd really truly recommend this week was Shield, because everything else I watched wasn't that good. But Mike, any TV highlights?
In the interest of time, I'm going to be keeping this very short. And I'm behind on this week's episodes of everything. But I did see last week's episodes of everything, so let me say this. Black Lightning is an excellent show so far. Episode 2 was just as good and just as entertaining as episode 1. Great content, great storytelling, great acting. Highly recommend Black Lightning. Flash last week was all about Ralph Dibny and Goldberg. So I thought last week's Flash was interesting. I don't know what they're going to do this week. I haven't seen it yet. But last week it was fine. This week's episode of Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson was not amazing. It wasn't the most interesting thing for me, but other than that, I thought it was a fine show. I always recommend Star Talk. It's a great show, great education you're going to get from watching that. You're going to learn about something. That's always the best thing. Other than that, I don't have too many things to suggest. Oh, Drunk History. Drunk History returned with Insidious Minds. The first one was about Rasputin. It was really interesting. So I highly recommend Drunk History. That airs on Comedy Central. So there you go. Kept it short and sweet.
Cool. All right. So again, I said we'd be very quick with the entertainment stuff, and we were. It's because we got wrestling, a couple wrestling things to get to. So let's move on. Out of entertainment, we'll do more of it next week, folks. Don't worry. And out to wrestling, and we had the Royal Rumble on Sunday. We also had NXT on Saturday. We had Monday Night Raw, and we had SmackDown. And I'm going to kind of lump it all together just because I think it'll work quicker that way. Obviously, we didn't watch NXT, but we know what happened. And it seemed like there were some classics on that show, particularly the NXT title match, which, you know, ended with the title being...
Which we didn't see.
Right. I just said that. I'm aware.
Which we didn't see, and I blame you.
You can blame me. It was my fault. I'll accept that. But it ended with the title being retained. It was supposed to be a classic match. So, you know, it looks, I mean, that, as far as from what I heard and what I read, that show seemed very, very good. I can say the Rumble on Sunday I thought was fine. I didn't like, I thought the first 2 matches were okay, but I thought they ended, I thought back, I don't mind the endings for given that they're going to continue the storylines, but here's my issue. They shouldn't have been back to back. They should have swapped the match order because you can't have the show start with those 2 matches back to back. It's just the way it goes. So I thought that was a mistake. But otherwise, I liked that the Women's Rumble main event. I thought it was great. I liked all the returns. Lita, Trish. Thought they did well. Michelle McCool. The Women's Rumble deserved to me, but I liked it. I didn't mind the triple threat match, Brock, Braun, and Kane. I thought it was all right. I would have liked to see Braun win, but Raw tag match was fine. Was just in a bad spot. Should have been the second match. I felt bad for those guys. The men's match was great. I thought the ending was very good. I liked the whole past versus present thing with, Cena, Orton, and Mysterio, versus Reigns, Balor, and Nakamura. I thought that was really cool. Ray's return was great. Nice surprise. The ending was great. It was the right move to have Roman in there because I think it further put Shinsuke Nakamura over. So I thought they did great there. I didn't mind the Ronda thing at the end of the night. I know a lot of people did. I know some of the women in the back did, and I can understand why. I didn't mind it. I thought they gave Asuka enough time, but again, I think it's kind of like a divided issue. Definitely made things interesting for Mania. I think they had the right Rumble choices. I don't have an issue with that. It's clear WWE wants to prove that they're going to put over a Japanese superstar, which they should be doing. And I'm glad they are. So I thought that was good. So the Rumble I thought was good as a whole. For once, it makes you interested in the road to WrestleMania. That's for sure. For the first time in a while, it's definitely looks like there's some interesting things going on. Raw and SmackDown. I thought Raw had the better night than SmackDown. I thought SmackDown was okay. The Zayn Owens stuff I knew was coming, but I'm kind of surprised they're moving so quickly with it. Like I feel like they went from teasing tension on Sunday to kind of like full blown on Tuesday a little quick because they still have a month and a half before the next pay-per-view where they're going to play this out, but. I don't know. Maybe injuries are a factor. I don't know. But I mean, I thought the main event was fine. It was interesting. But other than that, I thought the rest of the show was kind of forgetful. I'm glad that they kind of did a Carmella tease because they've kind of forgotten about her. But other than that, I didn't think there was much going on other than Rusev getting his chance at the U.S. title, which I think is the right move. I think they botched Dolph Ziggler. It's a shame that they took him off TV for so long and kind of just threw him into the Rumble and had him uneventfully kicked off out of the Rumble. Eliminated from the Rumble and then did nothing with it on Tuesday. I think they kind of dropped the ball there. So that's unfortunate. But as for Raw on Monday, again, I thought Raw was better than SmackDown. The Strowman Kane thing was really interesting and fun. Of course, we have to have Braun destroy everything every week because it makes things interesting. And it does. I thought they put him over pretty good there. And it's interesting that they continue to have him push the Brock Lesnar angle. Makes you wonder. Well, we're building towards Elimination Chamber. And so far, it's about what you'd expect it to. Braun's in there. Let's see, we had Finn Balor versus Cena at the end of the night, which was a very good match. And probably the most interesting thing from Raw, because it was interesting to see Cena playing to the crowd, and I'm almost wondering if they're doing something with storyline-wise with that. It doesn't seem like they are, but the way they played it. And it seems like for most part, sounds like it's doing more for Finn and where he's going than it for Cena. But good match, and again, any one of those men could have won, but depends on what their storyline is. The women's stuff division had some good stuff. Sasha Banks and Asuka had a match, which was great. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything. That's all the things I can think about as far as Raw goes. I know 205 Live introduced Rockstar Spud as the GM. So that was interesting. They're going to do a tournament coming at WrestleMania, so that was a good move. The mixed match challenge, which has been fun. If you haven't seen the Alexa Bliss Braun Strowman videos, please do. They're hilarious. But other than that, I mean, that's all I can really think about when it comes to wrestling this week. There's been some good stuff. I mean, looks like we're finally getting some ideas on where WrestleMania might be going. So it's good stuff. Mike?
Well, I can't comment on any of the NXT stuff because we haven't seen it.
I know.
We haven't seen War Games either.
I know.
But that's neither here nor there. It's here and there, by the way. But I'm going to keep this in the interest of time very short, very sweet, because it's 12:01 and I don't want to talk for a million years. I'd like to get to bed within the next hour, hopefully. The Royal, okay. This was a busy wrestling weekend, because not only did you have the NXT show and the Royal Rumble, you also had the 2 New Japan shows in Sapporo, Hokkaido, and those were huge shows with 2 very big matches. Night 1 featured Minoru Suzuki versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. Suzuki, of course, is the freaking saddest, who's just amazing at everything he does, and Tanahashi is the Japanese John Cena, the ace of the world. This was for the Intercontinental Championship over there, which, unlike in WWE, is about equal to the World Championship there. That was that match was a 32-minute clinic on how to work a body part and sell a body part, and it told a marvelous story. It was well worked. It was an intense 32-minute match. Minoru Suzuki comes off as the new IWGP Intercontinental Champion. Fantastic match. He won via referee stoppage when it was real. Tanahashi just couldn't escape, but he wouldn't submit either. So, excellent match. It was hard to top. Night 2, you featured Jay White, Switchblade, versus Kenny Omega for the IWGP US Championship. Kenny Omega was the inaugural U.S. champion. He finally loses it here to Switchblade Jay White, and that was a good match. Obviously, every Kenny Omega match is worth watching, every single one. But this one, it was more about the aftermath, where the Elite, not so much the Bullet Club, but the Elite was kind of fracturing from inside, and Kenny Omega gets double crossed by Cody. Don't call me Rhodes. And he gets attacked by Cody and Hangman Adam, who is not my favorite wrestler, but whatever. And Kenny Omega is saved by his best friend, you could say, his longtime tag team partner, the yin to his yang. He was saved by Kota Ibushi, who was in the WWE Cruiserweight Classic. So, and they reunited at the end after driving off Cody and Hangman Page. It was a very emotional moment if you have been following their careers or know anything about it. And now we don't know what's going on with the Bullet Club. We don't know what's going on with that. So there's a lot of intrigue there with the Bullet Club and the Elite, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As for the Royal Rumble, I think the Owens and Zayn match versus AJ Styles, it was fine. The ending was dumb as shit, and it was made even worse. It was made even worse by the events that transpired on SmackDown this week. I don't even want to talk about it. It was bad. The ending was dumb. Whatever. If AJ Styles is going to win, fine. He was going to win. And you were going to protect Owens and Zayn, but that was not the way you go about it. I'm sorry. You probably should have had Shane McMahon involved in some fashion to kind of give you a sense of what of how AJ was supposed to, because that was a cheap, and let's face it, that was a SmackDown quality match. It was not a pay-per-view quality match. It wasn't a WrestleMania quality match. It was an embarrassing finish to an average match. And that's sad, because Owens and Zayn and Styles are phenomenal wrestlers. No pun intended. The SmackDown tag team match, Usos winning 2-0. That was a shit match with a shit finish. Thank you very much. If you're going to run that finish, then you at least give Benjamin and Gable one fall. So when you get the fluke 3 count, yeah, it matters. So you know what? Fuck that. That was the stinker of the show. The Bar versus Rollins and Jordan. Jordan couldn't do much. He was suffering from back injury. He was selling the head this time around, I guess. But he has a legitimate back injury, so Rollins pretty much had to work that match solo. And Rollins versus Sheamus and Cesaro was everything that AJ Styles versus Owens and Zayn should have been. Good Lord. That was a good match, and it's too bad the crowd wasn't invested in that. But then again, Rollins and Sheamus and Cesaro have put on great matches consistently. So that's not surprising. Brock pinned Kane. I wish Braun would have got the title here. It probably would have been the smarter idea, but since I guess we're spiraling towards Roman versus Brock, I guess we just have to deal with it. And Braun wasn't pinned, so whatever. So let's go down. Let's go down to the bottom of the barrel with that one. Give Roman his moment and just end it, because there's nothing else you could do for that. The men's Royal Rumble was probably the best booked that Rumble has been since Sheamus won it. The right guy went over in the end. Shinsuke Nakamura needed to go over, and he was put over bigger than he's been over the past 12 months, really. I really wish they didn't announce the AJ Styles thing, because you could have made a moment out of that later on. You really could have made a moment out of that later on down the road when he ultimately picks opponent. Mm-hmm. So they rushed it. It was not the smartest idea, but it was the best booked Rumble in the world. There wasn't a whole lot of surprises, but Rey Mysterio coming back for that one-off was an amazing moment. It was great. He wasn't booed. He hit all of his signature spots. He looked great. He was moving great. He was in the final 6. It was a good moment. Finn Balor, of course, the Iron Man in that match, going for 58 minutes. I think that match probably would have done great with either Shinsuke or Roman or Shinsuke or Cena. Mm-hmm. It might have been a little bit more dramatic if the final 2 were Shinsuke and Cena, because you could buy Cena kind of, and it would have played into that Monday story a little bit better. If you think about it, Cena was so close, but now after not winning the Rumble, he didn't know what he was going to do. So, which made the match against Balor on Monday a little bit better. But otherwise, Nakamura going over Roman, smart idea. The Women's Royal Rumble, Asuka winning was absolutely the right move. Having her and the Bella Twins as the final 3 kind of cemented it. Although you could kind of think that Vince had the wheel spinning. Well, maybe I'll give it to Nikki Bella, damn it. I love Nikki Bella. John Cena loves Nikki Bella, damn it. Maybe I should give it to Nikki Bella. But Asuka going over was the absolutely correct move, and her being in the ring with Bliss and Charlotte was a moment. And look, the truth is, Ronda Rousey coming out was a moment, absolutely. But it was the wrong time for that moment, because at that time it was you think that they gave Asuka enough time, but no, they really didn't. And that was the one takeaway everybody had. Yes, Ronda's here, great, but that was Asuka's moment, and you took it away. You did something historic, and it made it all about Ronda Rousey, who wasn't even in the damn match. So you know what? It was insulting. It was bad, and it wasn't the right time for it. Because even on WWE social media, where you just touted this historic match for a month or so on end, this is the first time that women are going to have their own Royal Rumble. You tout this nonsense, and what is the image on your Twitter banner the next day? Is it of Asuka, who won the first ever historic Women's Royal Rumble? No, it's of Ronda Rousey, literally in the photo, hiding, pointing to the WrestleMania sign. Literally, you don't see Asuka in the picture really at all. You see her legs and maybe an arm. But it's of Ronda Rousey pointing to the WrestleMania sign. There's the problem. You literally overshadowed Asuka, who won your major historic first women's Royal Rumble match. Terrible, terrible, terrible idea. Although nobody's complaining about Ronda Rousey being there. They got their headlines after all. Raw was the better show. SmackDown was a pile of crap. And I'm not saying that because I'm an Owens and Zayn fanboy. I'm saying it because SmackDown was a pile of crap. Raw was better. That Asuka Sasha Banks match was fantastic. Asuka going over was the right thing to do. Cena versus Balor was great. Braun Strowman murdering things was great. He beat up Kane and flipped the announce decks, etc., etc. Like Raw has the better show. SmackDown, there's nothing to write home. And the Mixed Match Challenge, obviously, that was the Mixed Match Challenge match was the most entertaining thing about SmackDown. The most entertaining thing about SmackDown was Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss versus Zayn and Becky Lynch.
I need to see Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss get a sitcom.
Yeah, I mean, it's the other team in the Mixed Match Challenge that I think is interesting. The other one, obviously, is Miz and Asuka because they're so different as well.
Right.
But Miz will sell everything.
Right.
and Asuka will sell everything. So there you go. That's all I have to say about wrestling. The wrestling weekend was very interesting. Hopefully we'll see NXT.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll see the last two NXT specials. Right. Take the fucking hint for once, Brian.
The hint. I have already taken the hint about like 200 and something times.
Clearly, since the first 200 and something times didn't get through to you, I'm going to make it publicly on air. But otherwise,
life happens.
Yes, life happens. Yes, life happens. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, it was a lot of wrestling this weekend. Totally worth watching. Go out of your way to watch Suzuki Tanahashi. Go out of your way to watch the Jay White and Kenny Omega and the Royal Rumble matches. But definitely don't watch the WWE title match from the Royal Rumble. That was total shit. Also, but watch the NXT title match.
I'll also say this too. Great to see Coach back and Booker T off commentary.
Oh my God, that was a breath of fresh air. Coachman knows what he's talking about. Coachman's good. It's good to see Coach back. It really is.
That was good. Yeah. All right. So I know we kind of rushed at the end, but we kind of had to. So somehow we got through everything before 1 a.m. Thank God. All right. So with that being said, before we all just kind of fall apart here at the seams, let's get the ball rolling on ending the show. As we wind down here, let me remind you all of how you can continue to interact and contribute to the show. Send us your feedback, questions about the show, scheduling of the show, topic ideas, breaking news items, sports, entertainment, wrestling we want us to cover. Question about the show and the scheduling of the show, reactions, comments, opinions, and if we talked about any of these things or anything regarding the show, any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember, hashtag itspotlight411 is what you want to use on Twitter when discussing our show or tweeting us or whatever. And of course, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our fan page so you can follow us. Again, follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter. Find us on Twitter at IT Spotlight 411. Remember, hashtag IT Spotlight 411 for anything to tweet regarding the show. And again, on Facebook, search for In the Spotlight 411 and make sure that you like us so you can catch all of our updates regardless of scheduling or anything to do with the show. We also post random things on our social media as well. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter so you can have access to all that and more. 2 ways to keep up with the show and look back at past episodes. You can stream us anytime on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search In the Spotlight 401 on those sites. When you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites where you can stream any of the episodes we've ever produced for Google Plus and YouTube. That's every episode from mid-October 2015 all the way up to tonight's current episode. This episode's available for you to stream anytime you want. So if you want to stream those episodes anytime, just search In the Spotlight 401. Again, search for In the Spotlight 401 on Google Plus and YouTube. Again, it's on Google Plus and YouTube. If streaming is not your thing, maybe you prefer to listen to us on the go, or maybe interested in older episodes of the show. If any of that applies to you, check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. To search In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites. When you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites where you'll find every episode we've ever produced in the 7.5 years we've been doing the show. So every episode from original Blog Talk Radio run from October 2010 to January 2021, all of our talk show episodes from January 2021 all the way up to mid-October 2015, and all of our episodes that we've ever produced for Google Plus and YouTube. That's every episode from mid-October 2015 all the way up to tonight's current episode. All those episodes are in audio format for convenience. Every episode we've done, including our Google Plus and YouTube episodes, all in audio format for your convenience. Maybe you missed a part of an episode, want to check on an episode again, just listen on the go, listen to an episode in general. Keep up with current episodes, or look back at an episode from 4 or 5 years ago for the again, or look at an episode like that for the first time, or listen to an episode like that for the first time. If any of that applies to you, you can check us out again on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Again, just search In the Spotlight 401. Again, search In the Spotlight 401 on Podbean and iTunes. Again, that's on Podbean and iTunes. Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. And Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. Your ways to keep with the show and look back at classic episodes. Just search for In the Spotlight 401 on those sites, and search for In the Spotlight 401 on all of those sites. I want to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike.
I am literally going to sleep. It's time for bed.
I want to thank myself for a great show, parents on my back, and thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. So those will be watching, listening to this later, thank you to you as well. Thank you for staying up with us and for your patience tonight. Again, hopefully next week will not be as bad. But then again, we won't have as much to do because we have 2 relatively normal shows next week. We'll have our sports on Tuesday, which will include the return of our Bracket Bugle and our Bubble Watch. We'll look at the weekend college basketball and look ahead, of course, to all the big games and talk about the bubble. Our kind of first Bubble Watch report, and kind of look at all the teams on the bubble and whatnot. And then, of course, we'll also talk about the Super Bowl and all that goes along with it, and any other sports stuff we have to talk about. And then, of course, we'll talk about wrestling as well. All the big headlines from Raw and SmackDown, along with anything else. That'll be on Tuesday. Thursday, entertainment, box office beat, TV highlights, the return of the film picks of the week, and anything else for entertainment that we have to cover. Next week should be a pretty normal week. So even if we start later on Thursday, at least we won't have to do as much as we did tonight. So that's next week. So not a whole lot, nothing really special next week. Beyond that, I'm not sure. Again, and I'm just going to warn you all right now as we go through this month. And obviously, I've told you about the Thursday with the classes. Obviously, when you have a wife in labor, she can once you get to the last month, you're on call every day. So just be aware that something could come up. We could have a last minute cancellation or something like that at any point. I know when the due date is. I'm planning ahead for the due date and going, oh, we might have to take that week off or whatever. But people keep asking me about schedules and what's going to happen. Obviously, we always have preemptions in March for the tournament and stuff, so that's March. But as far as this month goes, it's really going day to day. We could have a last minute, cancellation or something like that. So just be aware this month that could happen at some point as we go along here. So just keep that in mind going forward. Obviously, when you have a pregnant wife, that's what happens. So, all right, so just keep all that in mind because that's all the scheduling info I'm going to give you right now because that's all I can really give you. So, all right, so with that being said, that is it for tonight. That is it for this week. Our first show of February in the books. Our next show will be this coming Tuesday, February the 6th at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Broadcasting, streaming live here on YouTube. So I hope you all have a great rest of your night, a great weekend, a great start to week next week. We'll see you back here this coming Tuesday, February the 6th at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time for our next show. Until then, stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. Talk to you next week.